get a basic understanding of what this quote Black Manosphere is?
Yeah, so the thoughts and opinions of Edward is that thereof the thoughts and opinions of Edward, because I tend to say stuff and then people will sit here and try to, even though I know what I'm saying is on point, people may have different opinions of this, and so I'll put that out there. I will also say the manosphere is different things to different people.
Okay.
So, for instance, when you look at, like, I'm not even going to go into deeper, like, you have factions. So here's the thing: you have the black male niche, you have the black niche, the black relationship niche, and our side of that, because the women have their own complete other thing with the stuff they talk about. And then you have the black male niche, which is pretty much black men talking either from their perspectives, from their point of view, and advocacies. And then you have the black manosphere is kind of like a hub within that.
Okay. So
If
it's
that
not
makes sense.
really, yeah, it does. So it's not necessarily a monolithic group. It's really
No.
just a collective group of black males. One of the questions that came to me is there any how would you know who is Black Manosphere versus just being a black male content creator?
You don't. Like, the reality is usually they'll claim it. I mean, the problem with the audience, and this is what I keep saying, is that people will see a black man and assume they're in the space just because they're a black man making YouTube videos about, and they may agree with some things that are red pill related, but that doesn't mean they're necessarily in the space. The way the space came to be is, so there's what we call like a 1.0, 2.0, 3.0. 1.0, you don't really see a lot of content creators from 1.0 like that, because
Mhm.
because this is when YouTube was like a different space. You have people like Soul and Black, Hardcore Tito, Thugtician, SWP, Sergeant Willie Pete. I'm just trying to pay homage to those guys.
Right.
Basically, people will say Tommy Sotomayor was the first, and then you'll say they kind of came at the same time, and the conversation was a little bit different because that was more like 2008 to 2012 or
Okay.
11. So it was a different conversation. It was a different time. Obama was in the White House, stuff like that. You had the housing crisis, and aftermath of that.
Hmm.
And then YouTube was in a different place. So pretty much with YouTube, they had this thing called the apocalypse. And this is where, and at the same time, a lot of folks were attacking our channels because they just didn't like the fact that black men had an opinion. And the stuff we say now is then was nowhere near like some of the stuff that we say now. It was a lot more diplomatic. What's the issue? Going back and forth with what the points were. And people used that. Obsidian was there at the time too. There's a couple of people that were there back then too. And
Hmm.
people weaponized the fact that YouTube was rotating a lot of their ads because their advertisers didn't want their content coming up against stuff that may not be mainstream friendly. That was whether it was us, whether it's maybe some more of the hardcore conservative talking points. It,
Hmm.
it, it was a lot of different stuff, right?
Right.
And whether it's hardcore or not, it was that balance that YouTube was trying to strike with their advertiser base. And so what they started doing was shutting down channels. And people
Mm.
use that as a way to flag channels down. And a lot of people never recovered from that. So they created this list that had a whole bunch of channels on there. And this is actually before I actually had a channel. And a lot of people found each other through that. So that's kind of like one of the ways that what you see now was kind of the offset of that, where you really see it today. And then you have people that really have kind of carried on from that. And so what you're really referencing when you look at the lead attorney, and the lead attorney obviously had a channel before, or not obviously, he had a channel before Kevin.
Right.
But a lot of people benefited from Kevin. It's not even so much Kevin; it's really also the environment of people, the pandemic, people being in their house more, watching YouTube
Okay.
more, and then Kevin a lot of people found Kevin offline, and they found people, and people like Lee Turner and others were able to benefit from that. But they did what they did on their own. So you have like this post Kevin Samuels blowing up group that created a lot of audiences, whether they're men and women. You had people like the Lapeep Network and stuff where they had a channel, and then people benefited. I'm not saying that everybody owes Kevin everything. I'm just saying that's how the
Right. Right.
traffic the algorithm and the niche kind of shifted. And then you had channels that benefited, like Poor Man Mediocre, O'Shea helping other people out too. And so people are coming in with different perspectives because they don't have that history. And when I say history, I mean like there's cycles. The thing that Kevin brought into the space, and Lead Attorney has done this too, is when you hear things out of women's own mouth, It
Hmm.
is different than when dudes are just saying what they're saying. And
Right.
so before you could collab with women, but a lot of times because women have an advantage on social media because they can pull from both groups. Number one, number two, they can lean more on their looks. Not all of them, but they can. And then women tend to trauma bond or bond with other women because they're more social than men are generally, and that's going to reflect it on social media.
Right.
So and then obviously because of YouTube being more feminist minded, they're not going to be as likely to stamp women's channels or shadow ban it. Now, I've seen them shadow ban Black women's channels that are in business and other stuff. So it's not to say it never happens, but it's less likely to happen. So women can kind of grow a little bit better. And it is what it is. It's not me complaining. It is what it is.
Right.
When Black women are also on social media a lot more than Black men are, and they're going to be reflective in the relationship space more than men are going to be, just like how men are going to be in sports more. So the
Right.
point is that you have new people with newer perspective where they haven't really seen some of the stuff that certain women have said or crazy stuff. So they have more of a olive branch mentality, and
Okay.
that's fine because eventually folks are going to do what they're going to do. So
Right.
so what you see is a lot of dudes trying to catch folks up and download a lot of information really quickly into folks rather than letting people come to this stuff, trusting that the environment is the environment and people will find stuff out on their own.